We begin this additive and subtractive process on the tone page by getting out our hard white plastic eraser, and we're going to erase out a rough shape, a vertical box on the left side, followed by another shape, a horizontal block on the right side. We're using the hard plastic eraser, but you will also be able to use your kneaded eraser again. If you want to use it for pencil drawings also, you'll want to tear it in half or cut it in half to keep one part clean, because that eraser, once it's full of charcoal, will not just take charcoal away, but will be putting charcoal down wherever you go with it. Again, the different charcoals have different properties, so that when you're erasing, you'll find that loose, soft vine charcoal, that side comes off easier. Whereas on the side that was mostly using the charcoal pastel, that's a soft material, but also very dark and embeds much more fully into the page. So it might be harder to take off, but it's easier to get like a strong contrast, and it will have a stronger sort of grip in its place. So it's easier to layer. It's easier to layer that work, and so often you'll get like a more three-dimensional quality to the work, versus having a harder time maybe layering with that natural or vine or willow charcoal. This might dictate what you want to use with shorter versus longer drawings, or what you want to begin a drawing with versus what you want to add in as you go along. Also, with those differences, you may find that not all of these materials work well over each other. So if you were to do an elaborate beginning of a drawing in a very soft vine charcoal, it may be then, if you were to bring that compressed charcoal that's very hard over it, it might be sort of like you're drawing in sand, because that loose surface underneath doesn't really allow the compressed charcoal to penetrate and attach itself to the page anymore. So again, this is why as we begin, we're just sort of trying some of the material out to get a sense for how you can push it around and what it does. You'll see in the demo that I further aggressively removed charcoal as I went along until I'm left with a dark L or a boot shape, and you'll want to do the same. And then this graphic value pattern, this broad general statement of light and dark contrast, this blocking in of value composition where light and shadow arrive before the picture, this abstract form preceding depiction, without outlines. This is followed with a kind of back and forth process integrating the material in the page. So you come back in and rub the surface to push things back toward this middle ground, reducing the value range and clarity, fuzzing the boundaries between light and dark, so that then you can come back in more incisively in the next layer, reassessing where the light and dark are, starting to become more particular to boundaries between things, and with more sensitive transitions between things. That next layer, it's on the bones of that initial proposition. In successive layers, the value range from light to dark will be expanded, and the redrawing and correction process moves back and forth between erasure and charcoal added, between positive and negative space. While you're testing your materials, you can work a third kind of charcoal, compressed charcoal, into this process as well. Willow or vine charcoal are made from willow branches or grapevines burnt in a kiln. Compressed charcoal is powdered charcoal formed together with a binder like gum or wax, and it's generally harder than willow or vine. And then the charcoal black pastel, or pastels in general, are pigment held together with binder. It's the darkest, blackest, and tends to stick to the surface, as does the compressed charcoal, making them harder to erase and work at times, but also more permanent and easier to fix. With fixative spray, You'll start to see here as I get more information developed, as I just focus on where light and shadow hit and their degrees, the picture of what I'm drawing starts to emerge. I'm drawing just my coffee cup, a simple object. You can do the same, but again, for this exercise, I would begin just by sort of following the steps of like how to lay down the material and handle it. To work fully in light and shadow, in tonal form, is a way of engaging the psychological cues that come with this stark value contrast and potential for realism. Uh, Light and shadow, described without lines, is a way we experience one kind of realism photography, and it's also found in art, from the stark, tenebrous light of contrasty Baroque painters like Artemisia Gentileschi and Rembrandt, to the more modern movements of film noir or German expressionist cinema. If we begin working with charcoal from this distinct proposition of how it defines strong light and shadow, then later we can start to incorporate some other ways of seeing, like planar analysis or like gesture, or other linear methods like cross-hatching, to get a greater diversity of layered form beyond this layering that we've described here in this process.